Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, a podcast where I take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knudsen. Come along with me on this week's adventure. Guys, this was such a fantastic conversation that I had recently with my good friend Greg Bakun, who hosts Ghostbox Radio. Now, this conversation actually started on Ghostbox Radio, and I'll put the link in the show notes so you can watch the original. But we began this conversation by talking about guardian angels, and it ended up evolving into the role our animals play in our life and their own intuitive psychic abilities. And I knew at that point that the conversation just wasn't done. And this is the continuation of that conversation. So if you're just tuning in, you don't have to watch the first one, but if you can, great, go do it. And I can't wait to get into this because I am a massive animal lover. I know so many of you guys are as well and have experiences with your animals that are remarkable and connected. And I want to expand on that conversation as well as talk about some of the research involved in parapsychology that actually covers some of this remarkable phenomenon. So let's get going.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's new series, Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, and go behind the scenes with cast and special guests, featuring Sarah Pigeon, Paul Anthony Kelly, Grace Gummer, and Naomi Watts. FX's Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, I am so glad that we are continuing this conversation from our last conversation on Ghostbox Radio because I felt, I don't know about you, but I just felt like we weren't done because of the last one. I just felt like we weren't done.
No, it's I mean, this conversation go on forever, quite frankly, because there is so much to talk about, and there's really just so much that we have either experienced or seen other people experience to talk about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much throughout the history of parapsychology and whatnot, especially when it relates to animals. And like I sent you, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but I sent you a video, just recently here, and it was so interesting and captivating. And just for the audience, you guys may have actually seen this online because it's been circulating pretty heavily. And it's the body cam footage of a police officer, and they were looking for a young boy and couldn't find him. And all of a sudden, this dog comes out of nowhere and starts barking at the officer. And he's barking, like trying to get his attention. The officer has the instinct to follow the dog and follows this dog all the way around to the back of this property. And lo and behold, locates the child in the back of this vehicle, basically locked in. I mean, nobody was going to find this kid for quite a while, and great big happy ending. Wow, this dog. So you assume that the dog was belonging either to the house or to a nearby neighbor, and it turns out nobody knows where this dog came from. Nobody seen the dog in the neighborhood before. The dog just seemed to come out of nowhere. The people that own the house don't know the dog. And the dog's never seen again. And that story just, to me, really kicked off this discussion because I'm like, okay, yes, it's possible this dog could have, come from a street from God knows where. I mean, who knows? But this felt special to me. I don't know. What was your take on this?
The thing about it, what I think is so wonderful, and this is to me what's so wonderful about animals is that it could go both ways. The idea that, as you see with Galen, as I had seen with some of my animals, that they are intelligent, that they pick up on energy, they pick up on all sorts of things that a lot of people just don't expect them to pick up on. And perhaps this dog is like, hey, look over here. But the thing is, the guy, at the end, the officer is literally like, I've been going around this area. I've been, patrolling this area for 2 years. I have never seen this dog before in my life. It is like, if it's a white dog, that to me is just like angelic. And the idea of having like spirit being like, I need to intercede now, and the best way to do so is taking the form of a friendly animal to get someone's attention is absolutely wonderful to me.
Yeah, it was it's so representative of so much about what we talk about, especially in the realm of I think understanding consciousness, but also understanding the fact that this is such a friendly universe. It goes back to that old question of, do you believe this is a friendly universe? And that's what I think this is so representative of, and something that when we talk about things like angels and spirit guides and stuff like that I don't think necessarily gets enough attention. The idea that often we see this source energy working through people or working through animals specifically to help us out, to be there for us. And I think that's an aspect of this that is really interesting, that maybe, animals and of course people at times are in tune to this stuff enough that we're receiving guidance from something else.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this when you're talking a little bit about the idea of like, if we're attributing like spirit to take the form of a dog to help police find this child. And I can imagine there's people, that's going to be listening being like, well, why is this not always the case? Why is this not,
Right.
oh, there's a lot of children that, whatever happens, all that. And it's like that. I don't think that would be the right way to look at it. I think the right way to look at it that this was a win, and we don't know what the stories are of our lives. We don't know what's been written, what's been, what the contract was. We don't know anything, right? So I like to think that, yeah, sometimes, things happen to people and children and animals that are horrible, and not sometimes, quite a bit. But when you have these moments, these are the things that we should really cherish and celebrate because to me, I do think that this is spirit. That's the only way I personally see it.
Yeah, I agree. And what's interesting I find with examining various tragedies and things like that have happened over the years, because you're right. I mean, there's just horrific things that have happened throughout the centuries. Is that there are these little moments within the tragedy or within the bigger picture of what's going on, which is always interesting as well. Like we hear this in survivor stories of natural disasters and things like that, where it was like, everything was going horrifically wrong, and then somebody steps forward and says, I saw something inexplicable that I can't explain. And it's not necessarily that whatever is there is intervening to change the larger picture of what's going on, but there's these little things that happen. We sort of saw it a little bit with people's instinct with 9/11. There was a lot of people's stories that survivors that came out later and said, everything in my being was saying not to get on that plane. Or I it's all of these things blocked me from going to work that day. So it's interesting. Like, so it doesn't necessarily change the scope of what's going on, but there's something else, I guess, is what I'm getting at work, over and above the shadow of whatever the incident is that's going on.
Do you mind if I want to touch on the instinct portion of it for a
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
second, if I may, because I think that's a really important part of it, because who knows how much of this sort of thing happens that gets ignored.
Right.
because we're not following our instincts. And really a shout out to and I'm always a big fan of local law enforcement. So shout out to the officer who basically clearly his premise of being an officer is I'm going to listen to anyone who has something to say about
Yes.
something I'm doing, anyone. And because you hear it in the video, like, "What's up, boy? What do you want to show me? Show me where you want to go." I mean, he's in the middle of a case, and he has the wherewithal to be like, it's clear that this animal needs my attention. I'm going to go see what happens here. Those are the type of things that, it could have very easily been somebody who is just like, go away. I got to find this child. You know what I mean? So those instincts, and what's even funny about the 9/11 is sometimes the things that get in your way to stop you from being a part of some horrific stuff. 9/11, there was actually a couple cases where found out that the guy told everyone he went to work, and in fact he was with his lover. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what uh, how we see these things sort of interlock and intervene, and I know some people think, "Oh, okay, well, we can sort of chalk this up to coincidence, or we could, or whatever the explanation is." And I mean, yeah, sure you can, but it's interesting even when you go back in the history of parapsychology. There's for the audience out there, there's an incredible researcher by the name of Rupert Sheldrake, and Rupert Sheldrake he's a fellow at Cambridge. I mean, he's got a history and degrees longer than my arm. But he's a phenomenal human being, and has written a lot of books about instinct, about this sort of telepathic, clairvoyant instinct that people and animals, because he's researched animals specifically, seem to carry. And the one thing that he very focused on throughout his research, and you guys can look this up on the Science Encyclopedia online if you're interested, is the abilities for animals to be in tune and be telepathic with their owners, like know when their owners, for example, are coming home, like little things that he could study that were repeatable. And he found throughout his research that this wasn't something that was coincidence. It wasn't like the dog's looking at his watch, waiting for 5 o'clock when his dad is off work. That's not what was going on. There was something else that was moving these beings to understand and to know what was happening, or knowing that their person is in trouble, for instance, versus just maybe being out of the house and whatnot. So like there's so much that's going on, even on the parapsychology side of the research side, that says that there is far more to this than just, oh, oops, it was just a happenstance luck.
It's really interesting too, because you have like I've had this told to me with one of my cats that you could easily be like, oh well, the cat just stayed in the same spot all day, or it's like they maybe heard the garage door open or stuff. But I've had the person I rent out my basement to, Robert, he's told me like my cats would turn up like 15 minutes before I got home every day, or the time I would normally get home, and that's when they wait. And there is that sort of like, do they have an internal clock in their head, or can they feel when I'm getting closer to the area? I mean, that's the thing about it, is what is that connection? We talk about that connection, and we have these great examples of it, but do we really are we only just getting a small portion of what that connection actually is?
I think we are. I mean, one of Rupert Sheldrake's studies, which I always found really interesting, was an experiment he did with Nikisi, who was a parrot. And they discovered that this parrot was actually telepathic. She was significantly surpassed chance expectations in producing things like keywords corresponding to images that were being viewed by the owner, not by her, by the owner. And it turned into a televised experiment, and it received something like 50% accuracy versus the 25% chance of this bird getting it right. And it's like this isn't something that is just chance. This has numbers associated with it at this point, and I think that's I think that's really, really interesting. I mean, Sheldrake has I should bring this up as well. Sheldrake has got some very, very interesting research, and I think this corresponds to what we're talking about, which is the feeling of being stared at. Now, I know, like, it sounds like, what the hell does this have to do with perception and guardian angels and so on and so forth? But I think when you find out that when they employ these sort of blind methods, uh, and you've got an 85% usage of these techniques and whatnot, it begins to start engaging your mind about what in the hell is actually going on here. I mean, we've got the telepathy tapes that have come out in the world of nonverbal autism now. Do you think that this is something where if we're just disconnected from ourselves, that we're just missing? Are we just missing this connection some of the time?
Absolutely. I mean, and disconnected from ourselves, I think we're more disconnected than we're ever connected. I think that, I mean, and I know it's cliche and it's going to be the normal answer of like everything that goes on around the world, our devices, everything else. I mean, we're walking zombies most of the time anyway. So, and I just feel like that, just going back and read certain stories, experiences, stuff like that. Even with the bird, it was everything was a little bit more simpler. We didn't put so much on ourselves, that you can understand that those type of experiments are easier to do, perhaps, or get better results is probably the better way of saying it, because you have people, you could be a little bit more in tune with it. I don't know. It's it's it just feels like that, most people don't realize all this stuff starts with ourselves, right? It
Yeah.
starts here, and you don't get that. You don't see people understanding that.
Yeah, I agree. It's like everybody's sort of waiting for the external thing to fix it, to
Yes.
the external thing to happen. And you're right. It does. It starts with us. There's an internal discussion that I think needs to be had instead of people sort of sitting around, quote unquote, waiting for the miracle. Is that I believe that miracles are channeled through us. They don't happen
Yeah.
to us; they're channeled through us. And when we're in that zone, as the athletes call it, when we're in that space, stuff starts to happen. And this is what parapsychology is teaching us as well, is that when we're in these different states, these head spaces, whether it be, meditation or just really in the flow, as many people call it, that's when things really, really start to line up. And I mean, our animals, we know, are in the flow a lot. They're in the
Yeah.
flow all the time for the
Yeah.
most part, unless we're intervening and causing a problem.
Truly.
Um, truly, truly, and, one of my favorite, guests here on Supernatural Circumstances is Dr. Edward Bassingthwaighte, and he's a vet. And I bring up his research quite a bit because one of the things that he's always said is that animals are more often, when he treats them, a symptom of whatever's going on with the person. And the person, if the animal has a heart problem, odds are the person also has the same heart problem or a similar problem. Like, it's really interesting how intrinsically sponge-like our animals are. And when we're able to just sort of leave them be and let them be in their space and be in their flow, and we don't get our disconnection doesn't interrupt that, then we start to see the connection like you had, with Linus. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because we were talking about that via chat the other day,
Yeah.
about Linus and his connection.
I mean, I always think that you get at least one or two in your life of a pet of some kind that transcends that pet human ratio sort of thing. And but that being said, I think, like you said, pretty much all your pets are absorbing your energy in some way, because they I think generally they consider themselves your protector. And, but with Linus, there was just this, amazing connection of, and I've said this, and we recently did an event we call Ghost Stories and Beyond, and that night was about pets in the afterlife, and really I explained to them. First of all I said, don't be afraid to tell your animal what you want, and to say it in English, because you'll be surprised with how much they understand. And I think one of the
Mhm.
greatest things that I was relieved with as well was I had asked Linus. This is morbid, but this is the truth. All my other cats I had to take in to put down. Every one of them. They
Yeah.
just Linus. I asked him. I said, "Can you please, if when that day comes, and I don't want it to come anytime soon, but it came sooner than I wanted." Could you please just pass here? Because I don't wanna have to make you leave this place. This is your home. This is where I need you to be. I think this is where you wanna be. And it's just plain English, and I'm holding him when I'm telling him this, I'm
Yeah.
petting him, and he's just staring at me, and I'm talking to him, and, you could be like, "Well, okay, he did pass at home," and you're like, "Well, that's just the odds." Maybe, but here's the thing. When he was dying, and there was about 2 days of illness, and there was during that period of time, I'm monitoring to make sure, like, if I need to, I will take him in.
Right.
I'm not married here to being like, I just wanna prove I'm right and make him sit here at
Sure.
home and suffer. He wasn't suffering, but he was ill. He was very ill, he had no energy, and he just would lay in different parts of the house. Like, I think he wanted to hide, so to speak, and die. And he was laying in the hallway, and everywhere he would lay, I'd go and lay with him. And one time he was in the hallway, and he had his paws out, and I laid next to him, and I had my hands out just because I was just next to him. He picks up his paw, and he puts it on top of my hand. And I just thought to myself, "You're dying, and you're trying to make this easy on me." You're comforting me right now. And there is something about that I'll never forget. My first instinct is like, "Oh, I wish I could get a picture of it." Then I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Live this. Just enjoy this moment, because this is your best friend who is reaching out to saying it's gonna be okay." That's the way I took it. It's gonna be okay.
They
You know,
know.
he knows. He knows. He knows his
Yeah.
time is up. I mean, this isn't gonna be a surprise. He's not wondering why he's ill or anything. He knows exactly what's going on. And I mean, at the very end, I actually had to do a pre-record for my show that day, and right before I was gonna connect with my guest, I just reached out and was like, I think this is it with him. I think
Yeah.
Linus is going. I just need to be here. And the guy, Tom Conwell, is just like, absolutely. He just don't think twice about it. And Linus goes behind the couch. I pull out the couch, and I pull him out, and I put him on one of my hoodies in the living room, and he raised his head, and his last time he meowed at me, it was just this very angry meow, actually, like, "No, no, I don't want you to see this is how I took that." And I
Right.
just looked at him, I said, "Sorry, buddy, you're not gonna be
Yeah.
alone in this. You're
Yeah,
not
you
gonna
don't
be
have a
alone."
choice.
Nope, nope.
Yeah.
And I held him, and, and then since then, he's come back so many times, not just to me, to his original owners, to other people. He's left a voicemail for someone that we literally believe it's him. Uh,
What?
my fr my friend Shar, who does all the paranormal events with me, she's like, sent me a note. She goes, "I think Linus left me a voicemail message," and I'm just like, "Okay." And when I saw her, she's like, plays it, and it's just nothing happening. It just someone like feels like someone might have butt dialed her or something, and all of a sudden you just hear meow, and then hang up, and
Wow, I've got goosebumps. I have
and it's just like
goosebumps!
what, and she. I mean, it's incredible, and there is a connection between them. His former owner, Amy, who I stayed in contact with her. She would always reach out to me when there's something she considered paranormal. She thought that I like I could help, so he's like I could.
Right.
And I'm not a Ghostbuster over here, but okay, I'll listen. And she's like, my alarms keep going off and they're not set. And what do you think is happening? And I was just about to respond to her, you know, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. This I hate to say it, kind of like a boilerplate sort of just response, like, don't worry about it, bad wiring, you'll be fine. And I
Right.
was typing, all of a sudden I see Linus's name just it just like pops up and goes down. Just Linus. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And so I said to her, I said, do this. Tell him to stop and use his name. And his name is Linus. And she's just writes back, she goes, "Oh my god." She goes, "That makes so much sense because we just brought home a new kitten today." And, I was just like, well, first of all, I'm kinda like, "You just brought home a kitten, then why didn't you wanna keep Linus?" But anyway, that's not for me to say. I was meant to have Linus anyway. But, and then with Puff, my current cat, no, I just got Puff back in May. A friend of mine, she saw a listing for Puff in Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace or wherever. No, probably on whatever the city page is or whatever. And she sees Puff, and once again, she told me without knowing my experiences. She says, "I see this ad for Puff, and Linus's name just pops up in front of me and goes down." And,
Wow.
she goes, "I have to share this with you." And the reason why I would never see this because I don't live in that town. So she shares it to me, and, Puff is 12 years old, must be 13 or so now. So she's not a kitten. She's a mature animal. So it's like what you're getting into in those situations.
Yeah.
But, I do believe that they're put out there to help teach you, and that they're given to you by the that you had before. So I do believe that line has pushed her my way. And, I've had Rob Guttrow, send me a letter that he said, like, "Linus would not leave me alone until I wrote you a letter." And that's not just like a couple sentences, it's like 2 hefty paragraphs.
Wow.
And it's stuff like that, and I have elevated Linus to my guardian angel. I really have. I feel like that there's been times that I just feel like that he's looked out for me, and I talk to him all the time. I reach out to him and I ask him stuff, and I just, he's there. He's always there in some way. And it's like it's so sad that he's not around, but at the same time he is around. It's just I feel blessed by that.
Oh, I can't blame you, and I have no doubt, I think it's our human brain that wants to take animals and make them less than. It's not who they are. We're talking about a different form of consciousness. And I think honestly when they manifest here with as animals, not only are they our teachers, as you've talked about, but like you say, there's a protector role as well. Even if it's something that is more of a emotional protection than necessarily like a physical one, but they're there to be on this journey with us. And I think, everything that you're talking about is so resonating with me because that's the one thing too that I've seen as well with. I mean, I've reptiles most of my life, and because I'm horribly allergic to fur, so I haven't had very many furry things. But the what I've noticed is that every every reptile that I've had, because I've usually on one or two at a time. I'm very like focused on raising them. So, I'm not a collector or something like that. And what I've noticed is that their intelligence, each one seems to be progressively more than the next. And I find that really interesting. And what I wonder about, and I'll get your take on this too, is if it's almost like one inner being fragment of consciousness is coming through and learning over and over and over and over. And now, of course, here now I've got Galen, my little ball python. He's going to be 22 this year. And I mean, his intelligence level is through the roof. Emotional intelligence, IQ, what he's able to do, his understanding of language, all of those things. It's like it's like he's pulling from all of the different past experiences that he's had as these other beings. and now it's him, even though he is a completely unique individual, and not to make him into somebody that he's not, but it seems to me like he's almost drawing from that same consciousness source maybe that the others were.
Absolutely. And, I also want to say, because I don't doubt that each one gets smarter, but I wonder what our role in that is as well, where we've had these interactions, these lives with these animals and reptiles, and are we kind of allowing them to bounce off us more because we're also in a different place each time,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, and I don't want to take away from the fact that I do think that they get smarter each time as well. And I want to ask you a question. Have you thought about, perhaps how many past lives you and Galen had together?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I think, I mean, there's probably 50 different timelines, if not more, that we are experiencing.
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually I plugged in Galen's photo a little while ago to AI, and I asked him. I asked it a question because I was just, I don't know, something just made me curious about it, and I said, if here's Galen's personality, here's who he is, here's his photo. If he were human, what would he look like? And AI thought and thought and thought and thought and thought and thought, and it sort of compiled all of whatever it was compiling in the background. And it came up with an image that was so powerful, it, like, brought me to tears, because it was like, that's him. That's him. If it was so spot on, Greg. It was like, but it was more than just, "Oh, that's cute. That's what, that's what he would look like if he was a person." That was I have no doubt that that version exists somewhere. It's so profound, and I encourage people to try this out if you're an AI fan, to try this out and to see what happens and to see your own emotional reaction to this, because it was so it was so profound, and it makes me wonder, going back to your question about, these different timelines, this sort of past life idea, so on and so forth. Um, wow, does it change it changes your perception. So I don't think I definitely think that this is not our first rodeo. And I really think that when we come into the physical world, that we have a a group that's with us. I think there's a group in non-physical that's with us. I think there are individuals that come with us who we recognize on some level when we meet them, and I think Galen was one of them. When I first picked him up for the first time, I had not gone into the store at the time looking for a snake at all, and it was instant. I saw him and I couldn't take my eyes off him, and he was in there with a couple of other different ball pythons, which he shouldn't have been, but he was. And the one of the ladies, one of the clerks came over and said, "Oh, do you want to hold him?" And I said, "Yeah." And that's not a normal response for me when I'm in a store, because especially animals, I'm like, "Oh, my heart is gonna break 1,000 times over." So she passed him to me, and I had just lost my little gecko, my little girl Mariah, and I was still in heartbreak for her. And it had only been a number of months since she had passed away. And they put Galen in my arms, and he was so tiny back then. He was just this little noodle, and he looked up at me, and I looked down at him, and he yawned, and he laid down in my arms, and he put his head down, and it was like, "Oh, there you are, Mom." And I was like, "Well, that's it then." Uh, so
That's figured out. Yeah.
that's
Well, and
figured out.
part of me had wondered too, is like if Galen just was like, was about time. Where have you been?
Mhm.
I've been waiting. I've been waiting for you. I've been, it's like,
100%, and that's really how it felt. And I told the clerk, I said, "Put him on hold," because I had nothing. I had no place to put him. I had no gear. I had nothing. And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Put him on hold." I said, I'll be back in a day." This is interesting. So this is where things started to line up too. This was another way I knew that this was meant to be. I began to call around because I, like, didn't have that much money, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm gonna, because I mean, reptile setup, it's expensive. I mean, you're looking at lights and humidity and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, "Holy shit, okay, well, here we go." So, I ended up talking to, an old supervisor of mine at the job that I used to work at back when I had a real job, and, the the guy said, "Oh, yeah," he said, I've actually got a Burmese python at home." And he said, "I've actually got an old tank here. I've got an old tank, it's in great shape. I've got the lights, I've got the," he's like, "for $60, you can come and get it." Sold.
Yeah.
Went, picked everything up, and literally within 24 hours, I had everything I needed to go and pick Galen up and bring him home. But it was like, and that was just one example, but there was a series of things that lined up that was like, no, the universe just cleared the way. It was remarkable.
It's something, and I have to say, because he kind of jogged my memory, when first time I ever saw Linus was, at, Amy's house, and, we had actually met through Facebook dating, and we were going to not Linus and me, but Amy and me, just being clear, folks, and, I'm not that weird, but, so, we went on a date, and, we eventually decided we're just gonna be friends, but the first time I went to her house, just kind of, chatting, and all of a sudden this just stunning cat comes walking out, which reminded me of my first rag doll, which was Dave. The way I met Dave is kind of the same sort of thing where, Linus just appears, Linus sits down, and, Amy goes into, like, the kitchen or something, and Linus is looking at me, and he's doing the closing of the eyes. He's doing the slow blink. And I'm like, "Oh, man, I just adore you," Amy picked that up, and Amy was just like, after a few months, she's like, "There seems to be something between you 2." Like, she says that you guys really connect. "Do you want him? We're thinking about getting a dog. Do you want him?" And I said, "No." And I said, "No," because I had an older cat, and I just didn't wanna put that onto her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't get him out of my mind, and, probably about 3 months later, I reached back out, and I said, I have to have him. I have to." And I said, "It'll work out." It never really did, quite frankly. Fortunately, kinda like Puff, AJ was a, one human. She doesn't share.
Right.
Same if I may real fast, same with Dave, and the other rag doll, it was my fiancé at the time. Eventually we married and divorced. She said that she got this cat, which I was kind of bummed out about because I thought that's something we should do together, get a kitten or whatever. And this
Yeah.
cat was like 3 years old. I'm like, "Oh my god, all this old cat." I'm much younger, obviously. And go outside because I went to her house, go outside to get some bags, and I come back in, and on the stairway, there's just this beautiful black and white cat just staring at me. And I always remember Jolene just says, "Someone wants to meet you." And she said, "I've had him in the house for about 2 weeks. He has not come out at all. This is the first time he came out."
Mm,
And, once again, Dave and I immediately, were very, very close, very close. And the thing about Dave too, Dave was another one that you spoke English to and he would get it. I remember there was a
yeah.
tornado warning. Sirens were going off outside super loud. For some reason, I don't know, remember what happened. Our smoke alarms were going off. I mean, it's just pandemonium. You know how a cat would respond there. And
Absolutely.
I said, "Dave, just please stay there. I'll get you in a second. Don't go anywhere." And I go do some of my stuff, and he did not move. And I would think that a cat would get the hell out of there.
Oh, he'd be under the bed in
Yeah,
2
there'd be
seconds.
something.
Yeah.
I said, "Please don't go anywhere. I will take care of you." And, yeah, it's just
Wow.
amazing.
It's phenomenal, and it goes back, I think, to the telepathic connection that we were talking about before, with what Rupert Sheldrake was talking about. I think there is such a deep level of telepathy and connection that's going on, and, we talked a little bit, off air about animals and their connection with spirits and things like that. And the story I recounted to you, and I'll repeat it here, is that during communication sessions or research sessions that I'm doing here at the house with spirit communication, Dylan is 100% tuned in to what's going on, and he looks forward to the sessions and the experiments. Like, if he knows there's one going on, he has to be out. He doesn't care what time of day it is, to the point where he will even go to the equipment. Like, he knows where I keep it in the house. He will go and point to it. Like, can we do this? Can we do this thing? And I remember just so clearly, and this has happened a number of times, but this one specific moment that he was out, and he was shedding during this time period, so they don't feel all that great. They kind of feel a little fluey, I think, when they're shedding, and tired, and fatigue, and skin sensitive, and all this. Anyway, he didn't care. He was like, no, we're doing this. I'm going to come out. I got it. So he was kind of cuddled up with his blankie on my lap, just sort of watching what was going on. And we said, Galen, did you want to ask a question? And he got up out of my lap, first time he'd been up out of my lap all evening, got onto the table, sat up, periscoped up about 1.5 feet, and he went into what I can only describe as this trance state. And it was like watching a trance medium. I mean, you couldn't get his attention. You could wave your hands in front of his face. He wasn't there. And he was connected in with something, and he probably sat there for a good at least 5 minutes of just being in this complete trance-like blissful state. And everybody at the table was just like, this is insane. Like, this is incredible. What the heck is he doing? Because, as I say, he hadn't been up for the whole evening. This is not normal behavior for him. He doesn't get like this. And then all of a sudden it was like he came out of it lifted, and he just sort of took a breath, looked around, came back to my lap, and sat back down and prepared for the next thing that we were going to do. It was so insane and so remarkable to watch this that, I mean, to me, there was no other way to see what was going on. He asked a question, but it's like, how did he even know to ask the question? Right? Like, it's just crazy.
Well, and you sent a picture of Galen, and just a part of everything. I mean, alert, just really truly just in the moment. And why, like, if it wasn't that, then why would he be there in that pose, in that situation? I mean, that's just too, I mean, it's just too obvious what it really is.
Yeah, I know, as deep it is in my soul, I know that he is very connected and in communication with whatever these spirits, for lack of a better word, are, these intelligences. There's something that is so intrinsic. And what's interesting too, and I don't know if you've noticed this with your cats, but we have moments like when he's feeling a lot of appreciation and gratitude, or I've done something for him that he's just really grateful for. He will stop and come up to me and be about, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 inches from my face, and he will look me in the eye in a way that is so profound, and he will stare and stare, and it's like, he's trying to just almost like laser focus his thoughts into your head. Like, he's trying to get the message across, and he's genuinely this focus. Like, if he could scrunch up his face, he'd be scrunching up his face. And it's I always get this deep sensation of, I love you, Mom, I love you. And it's like, it's so profound. Have you had something similar with your cat?
My cats are extraordinarily ungrateful to everything I've done. That's just no, absolutely. I mean, and they all show it in different ways. I mean, Puff is just so overly affectionate that it actually, like, stops me from sleeping at night, because she just won't. you'll wake up and there's this cat that just is clinging to you, which is amazing. You think about, I don't know if you ever think about that thing about human versus, human and animals, the way they interact, and that bond is just so it's something you just can't take for granted. But yeah, I'd get the slow blink is always a good one, for them to kinda just be, I'm happy to be here." Just the way that, one of my favorite things would be, like, I would pick up Linus, and I'd pick him up in a way where I'd always hold his back end and put my hand between his, like, upper arms so that he couldn't kill me, but at the same time, so that he was just, like, right there, and I always go in to kiss the top of his head, and he just started to do this, like,
Yeah.
the head get the head ready so you can kiss the top of his head.
He knows
I
what's coming.
He knows what's coming, and he's like, I'm in for it, I like it." And
Yeah.
even just like simple things, like when we used to do spirit box sessions, and I'd do them on Facebook, and I would always bring him up, and sometimes I might hold him a little too long, and he would do a bite to me, but not just a very, very gentle, like, "Hey, I just wanna let you know I'm done now." And I always thought that's so intelligent. He trusts me. He knows that I'm gonna get the message and that I'm going to just, put him down. I do wanna quickly say, and I put this in a message to you about, doing the spirit box sessions, and for a while I was trying to bring through, people
Yeah.
that everyone would know, and one of them was, Lizzie Borden, and uh I asked Sam Beltrusis because he is a relation to her. "Do you mind if I do this? I don't, if you don't want me to do this, that's totally fine." And he's just like, "No, please do." And he gave me some stuff to think about. And one of the things to think about when you're doing this sort of thing is, maybe not bring up the stuff they're most known for. I know that's what we all wanna talk about, but in my experience, it's like especially if it's something that they don't wanna be reminded of, or they're cool with it in their mind and their situation, they're not going to wanna talk about it. But she's a big animal lover. And so I picked up Linus, as I often do during the spirit box sessions, and I've done this hundreds of times, and he's just sitting there, and I said, it was spirit box is going, I said, "Lisbeth, I want you to meet, my cat Linus." And suddenly Linus, who has sat there all the times I've held him, all of a sudden he does this, you
Backs
know,
right
he
up.
he just like, "No, I don't want you to touch me." And, just right after I asked the question, I think that, he saw it. He saw her, and he didn't like, I don't think he necessarily would not like her per se. I think that he just, bad touch, I don't want you to touch me.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so very interesting. And just,
Yeah.
and it's like they see it, and Linus is always a great barometer. He was always a great barometer of, if the spirits got a little dark in there, he'd take off.
Yeah.
He'd disappear. And, we've had some alien interactions with spirit box in this house and whatever else, and when those happen, it's like he never lived here,
Yeah.
It's
Long
like,
gone. Yeah.
yeah, but, like, where did you go? He comes in the next day with some suitcases, just like, "Where have you been?" And, so, yeah, it's crazy how they are that connected.
They really are, and, like, how so here's a question for you, 'cause I'm sure people out there are probably wondering this, and I'd love to know your take on it, because there's so many animal behaviors and things like that that, are focused in the physical and are focused in their normal reactions day to day and so on and so forth. What do you think are the distinguishing markers between intuition and this sort of non-physical intervention? What do you think are the telltale signs for you in your experience that differentiates, oh, this isn't just a cat reacting to, whatever it is in the environment, or whatever, or they've got the zoomies today, or whatever, versus, okay, wait a minute, there's something else that's going on here.
I think the eyes tell a lot. Uh, I feel like, and also a couple things with, like, going back to that video with the dog wasn't gonna give up.
No.
The dog was just like, "No, this is, you have to follow me."
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I think that, there might be, I would think that there's a certain point that an animal might just be like, "Okay, I don't know what more to do. I could just bark," but he was just in the throes of, "You gotta follow." He's running and stopping and coming back, running and stopping and coming back, like, "No, you gotta come with me." I mean, it's just there's something there that just, and the idea, I mean, just even if we back it up even a little bit further, the idea of a dog seeing a child in a car and understanding that the kid cannot get out, because if it's a dog that lives around the neighborhood, theoretically, you'd think that a dog would understand that people get into cars all the time.
Right.
Now to be fair, it could also be that the dog picked up on, I don't know how frantic the kid was in the car or whatever else, but even still, I think that it's pretty incredible that a dog would be like, "This is not right. This
Yeah.
is not right." And what's permeating from that? Is it the child's energy that's permeated from it? Or is this a spirit animal literally that is just like been brought down? It's like, this child is not meant to die. And we need to now step in and help this,
Yeah, because that
That's
was the thing for me is the next step of thinking, which
yes,
is it's not just, "Oh, the kid's in trouble, so I'm gonna stand here and scratch at the door." It was now the next step is I gotta go find some assistance. And to me, that's a massive leap in intelligence
it is.
of I mean, that's some next level stuff. Like, I mean, that that level of thinking, and I mean, God knows animals are smarter than we give them credit for. Um, but like you were saying, the fact that he went for help and then somehow knew that police officer, like how many other people could that dog have run into that day that was out there? But he found the police. Like, there's so many things about that case to me that are just, yeah, but how did this happen? Well, how did that happen? Well, how did he know this? It's I don't know. Personally, I think with that story there was divine intervention going on,
And
I think.
and then when you bring that up, the idea is too, does this dog as spirit or whatever else recognize that this is probably the only person that can help? Like, this is an authority figure, that this is somebody here to help find that child, and in my mind, there's a whole lot of other questions of what's that child doing in that car. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
things that don't quite add up for me there, but, that's fine. It all ended well, but the focus is on the dog. But this dog is like, the way I see it is like, "You're a police officer, I know that I need to talk to you."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what I find interesting as well is that just talking about that leap of intelligence is that that's what people train service dogs for years to do.
Yes. Yes.
This isn't something that dogs instinctively do. This is something that I mean, you get a service dog and they oh, the person's in trouble, I have to go and find help. But that's not something that comes instinctually. That's something that is trained over and over and over and over again until the dog knows to go and bark at somebody on the street. So I don't know. I think the whole thing is absolutely remarkable. I mean, I just feel so blessed every single day that I get to experience life and the world, partly through Galen. Like, I learn from him every single time that we're together. He just shed this morning, so he's in bed, and he's probably gonna be be in bed for the rest of the day. But, I mean, every single interaction that we have and, if whether it be we're watching a movie or we're just walking around the house and chatting. That's one of his favorite things to do is me just haul him around the house and we just chat and I talk to him and he loves that. And it's just such a blessing for us to be able to share this. And I wish I wish more people got this. I know there's a lot of people out there that do, but I wish more people understood that.
Well, and I do wanna just quickly say too that, you those people who are just like, "Oh, I wish that could happen to me," it can.
It
But
can.
I think you have to
Yeah.
I think you have to put your mindset about how you think of your pet in a different category to start with.
Yes.
You can't just be like, I mean, and I know that we like you said this at the beginning of the program. You said that we are programmed to think of, pets as lower, animals as lower to us, and you do not think of Galen as lower to you. You think of equal. I think of my cats as equal, and just we do different things. I think once you do that, like you said, once you start talking to them and conversing with them and, it just and I think also telling them how much you appreciate them
Yeah.
as
All
well.
the time.
The last year of Linus's life, I mean, him and I would just hang out and he would be laying next to me and I just I'd actually, he'd be on the first landing of a stairwell or second landing of my stairwell. And so I'd be on the stair below so I could be equal to him. And I'd just look at him and it's like, don't leave me. I said, I don't know what I will do if you leave me. Please, you are my everything. And, people might be like, oh, geez, get a room, whatever. And it's just like, but the point is, this is what it is because I think we're seeing it more and more. People is calling their dogs and cats and other animals who left them as their best friend. People, I think there are people getting more and more used to that concept now.
I completely agree, and I think it's the one of the best things that can happen to anybody. I think when we begin to realize that that connection is something that is so sacred, and that, like you say, we're supposed to have that connection. That's not an abnormal thing. I think that's what we're here
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And it's part of the universe trying to explain non-physical to us through the eyes of someone who perceives non-physical completely different. And I mean, Galen, his perception, 'cause pythons, their perception of the world is so much greater than what we have. It just we're supposed to learn from that. We're supposed to understand that. Here we spend all this time doing all these, paranormal experiments and this and that, and, talking about the afterlife and blah, 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 and whatever. And it's like, we have the teachers. They're here. They are here. They are here to teach us presence. They're here to teach us how to be in the moment, how to get in touch with the non-physical and have these experiences. They're here. And, we in our human brains just like to go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, but it's just a dog, or it's just a cat, or it's just a snake," or whatever, and it's like, no, you are overlooking the messenger, and you can't go into it thinking that the message is just gonna be a conversation. It's not. You've gotta be able to tune in, like you were saying, go back into yourself, to get in tune in order to have that interaction and perceive the message, which is something that's the human's work. It's humans' work.
Yeah. Very much so.
Well, this has been amazing. This is exactly the conversation that I knew we were gonna have, which is just so awesome. Uh, Greg, talk about Ghost Box Radio. Where are your next events going on? Because people need to go out to these. It's just amazing. I wish I lived closer because I'd be at all of them. Just talk about that.
So we do a bunch of different events monthly. We do Ghost Stories and Beyond, where we just as a casual get together, people at a basement in a haunted restaurant, talking about different subjects every month. We, like I just said, we just did pets in the afterlife, which was let's put away a very emotional conversation for a lot of people, as one would expect, but absolutely fantastic. Last night we did an investigation of an old building across the street from where we do the ghost stories, and we do that monthly as well, which somebody's pet cat came through, and that was
Wow.
emotional and beautiful and wonderful. And as you know, when doing a paranormal investigation, especially doing an event, more often than not, your own spirits are going to come through and communicate more so than the ones you expect to be from the time
Yeah.
period of the building and whatnot. We also do a class. We do a 6-week class on paranormal investigating. It's not like Sally Struthers where you get, I'm a private detective now. This is just more of a, we want to give you some basics and some things to think about when you're investigating so that you are a better, more respectful, and just learn from the mistakes that we've made over the years, quite frankly. So that's starting up again. And that's both an online and in-person course for those who would like to take it. And that's starting the next class, starting for 6 weeks on Tuesday, March 3rd. If you're interested, go to my page, Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakun on Facebook. I have that stuff. I've been posting that stuff, how to get there. And then my show, Monday through Friday, 10:05 p.m. We talk about all things paranormal. We've had you on just a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And that was great. That was really fun. Good conversation as usual. So yeah, just it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun. One of the things I am truly blessed to be able to do this and have these conversations, and we, especially people on the same page. I mean, it's fine to kind of, have conversations and debates and stuff, but I prefer to just be like to kind of be on the same page, but get new ideas like from you about stuff that I hadn't thought about, different aspects of it. So I love that stuff.
That's my favorite part too, because to me it just expands things on a whole other level and makes me think in a new way, which is always a good thing. When we're stuck in our own little echo chamber, it's never it's never a good thing. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Greg, again for this, and I know people are going to take a lot away from this.
Thank you.
As always, a fantastic conversation with Greg. This is always such a profound topic, I think, because there is so much out there in terms of not only research and the academic side, but just stories of these incredible beings coming to us in various ways throughout our lives. I would love to hear some of the stories from you guys. You can always go to our Facebook group, Supernatural Circumstances, our consciousness community there, and talk about them. There's been so many things over the years of just reports and people coming forward with these remarkable encounters. And as I think we understand animals on a deeper sense, this will continue to expand. Because the one thing that I've learned over the years of the expansion of source and this subject, because they seem to go hand in hand, is that the more that we're ready for, the more that seems to come down the pipe and present itself to us. And I think that's one of the big takeaways from this conversation, is that if you want more out of your animal relationships, really the key is to be able to connect in with not only who you are, but prepare yourself and be ready for an expansion of that relationship. I think that's a massive piece of the puzzle with anything to do with consciousness, spirit, the paranormal, all the things we talk about here, is that the universe really does present where you are ready to expand and what you are ready for. So it always does come back to the inner work of the person, not trying to force change on the animal, trying to force a better connection or a better relationship or some remarkable event that is, you think should be accompanying this paranormal phenomenon. It doesn't work like that. It's something a lot broader. So I really encourage you guys to check out Ghostbox Radio. And as I say, the link to our first conversation is in the show notes. I mean, I've throughout my life have had so many different deep connections with these amazing beings. And Greg shared some of his remarkably personal and beautiful stories that I'm sure so many of you guys can relate to. And I know that going forward, we will have all of these various companions throughout our lives. But I wonder if it's truly that same energy that's just sort of reformulating over and over and over again. It makes you think. It really makes you think. So that being said, this was amazing. And thank you for joining me on this eerie and fantastic expedition, my dear listeners. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends.
Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and the 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knudsen, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.
The world is changing. From the misuse of AI and the rise of deepfakes to the dangerous spread of misinformation, it's getting harder for Canadians to separate fact from fiction. That's why having a trustworthy news source is vital. At Global News, we're committed to objective journalism that cuts through the noise. Stick to the facts. Global News, Canada's trusted news.